In the late 1950s, Hollywood believed it had found its next Grace Kelly, a young actress whose face seemed made for the silver screen. Her name was Dolores Hart, and for a few short years, she embodied everything the American dream promised: beauty, talent, success, and a future glittering with fame. But at the very moment when her star was burning brightest, she made a decision that stunned the world. She walked away, not in scandal, not in failure, but in silence. What could make a rising star, adored by millions, abandon everything she had worked for? The answer, as we would learn decades later, was both heartbreaking and profoundly human. The early life and rise of Dolores Hart. Dolores Hart was born Dolores Hicks on October 20th, 1938, in Chicago, Illinois, into a family where love and turmoil coexisted. Her father, Bert Hicks, was an actor whose charm on stage often came with instability off it. Her mother, Harriet Hicks, was warm but overwhelmed. When her parents divorced, young Dolores found herself torn between two worlds: the disciplined faith of her Catholic grandparents and the unpredictable glamour of her father's theater life. At her grandparents' home, faith was not a performance. It was survival. She went to Catholic school, attended daily Mass, and grew up believing that life's purpose had to be something higher than applause. But every time she visited her father backstage, something inside her stirred. The costumes, the smell of makeup, the thrill of the curtain rising, it awakened a longing that faith alone could not quiet. That tension between devotion and desire would define her forever. After graduating from Marymount College, Dolores began taking small acting jobs, determined to make her own way. Her natural poise and intelligence soon caught the eye of producer Hal Wallace, who had discovered stars like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. He decided she needed a new name, something elegant and unforgettable. And so, Dolores Hicks became Dolores Hart. Her first big opportunity came in 1957, when she was cast opposite Elvis Presley in Loving You, his first color film. At the time, she had no idea who Elvis was. "They told me I'd be working with a young man named Elvis Presley," she later recalled. "I didn't even know who that was." Within days, she realized she was witnessing something extraordinary. A young singer at the beginning of a revolution. Their chemistry on screen was electric, especially during the now famous kiss, the first on-screen kiss of Elvis Presley's career. What seemed like a small moment became a pop culture explosion. Newspapers called her the girl who kissed Elvis, and the label stuck. But what fans didn't know was that behind the scenes, their friendship was quiet and genuine. Between takes, the two often sat together reading the Bible, finding calm in each other's company amid Hollywood's chaos. Her next film with Elvis, King Creole, showed a different side of her talent. Playing Nellie, the gentle girl who sees the good in a troubled young man, Dolores delivered a performance full of emotional depth. Critics began comparing her to Grace Kelly, praising her elegance and sincerity. In just 2 years, she had gone from a college student to one of Hollywood's most promising young actresses. But Dolores was never comfortable with the industry's obsession with image. She saw how studios shaped everything: the clothes she wore, the interviews she gave, even the men she was told to be seen with. "Money and contracts can fill your pockets," she once said, "but they will never fill your heart." That quiet awareness began to grow in her, an unease she couldn't yet name. By 1960, Dolores's success reached new heights with Where the Boys Are, a romantic comedy that captured the restlessness of America's post-war youth. She played Merritt, the thoughtful college girl searching for meaning amid the noise of modern love. The film was a smash hit, and Dolores became the symbol of a generation, poised, graceful, and intelligent. But even as the world saw her as the perfect star, she was beginning to see something else: the cracks beneath the glitter. At the height of her fame, she began asking questions that most actresses in Hollywood didn't dare to ask. What does success mean when it leaves you empty? What is love if it demands your soul? For Dolores Hart, these questions would soon lead her down a road no one in Hollywood could have imagined. The turning point, the role that changed everything. Everything shifted in 1961 when Dolores was cast in Francis of Assisi, the story of the saint who renounced wealth for faith. She played St. Clare, a young woman who gave up a privileged life to follow St. Francis. Filming in Italy should have been just another career milestone, but something about this role felt different. Dolores approached it not as acting, but as prayer. She spent hours studying Clare's writings, trying to understand what could make someone walk away from everything. While filming in Rome, she met Pope John XXIII, who told her, "You are Clare." The words hit her like a revelation. From that moment, something began to stir inside her, a quiet conviction that wouldn't go away. She had spent years pretending to be different women on screen, but for the first time, she felt she had found herself. Her success continued with The Inspector, where she played a Holocaust survivor seeking refuge in Palestine. Critics praised her depth, calling it her finest performance. Yet, while her career soared, her spirit grew restless. She began to feel trapped by the very fame she once dreamed of. Hollywood's endless parties, interviews, and rehearsed smiles felt hollow. "It was all beautiful," she said later, "but it wasn't mine." Then came Don Robinson, a kind, gentle architect she met during this time. He loved her not as a star, but as a person. They became engaged in 1963, and everyone expected a fairy tale wedding. But as the date approached, Dolores could no longer silence the voice within her, the same voice that had whispered since Francis of Assisi. She realized she wasn't meant to be a wife or a star. She was being called to something else, something far quieter, but infinitely deeper. The decision to leave Hollywood. In the spring of 1963, Dolores Hart stood at a crossroads that few could comprehend. Her engagement to Don Robinson had filled her life with a new kind of hope. He was stable, devoted, and deeply in love with her. Their wedding plans were nearly complete. Her final film, Come Fly With Me, was ready to premiere, and her career stood on the edge of a new chapter. To the outside world, Dolores had everything: beauty, fame, love, and security. But inside, something was unraveling. Each night she found herself lying awake, haunted by a question she couldn't escape. What if this isn't the life I'm meant to live? The role of St. Clare had awakened a longing that success could never satisfy. She began visiting the Abbey of Regina Laudis in Bethlehem, Connecticut, where she had gone for rest and prayer. There, surrounded by silence and the rhythm of monastic life, she felt a peace that Hollywood could never offer. The contrast was overwhelming, the glitter of premieres versus the sound of morning bells in the Abbey's stillness. As her wedding drew near, the voice inside her grew louder. One evening, through tears, she confessed the truth to Don. "I love you," she said, "but I feel God is calling me. I can't ignore it." His response was one of quiet heartbreak. He didn't plead or argue. Instead, he simply said, "I always knew. Every love has its secret, and I knew what ours was." Days later, Don drove her to the Abbey gates. Dolores removed her engagement ring, kissed his hand, and walked away from everything she had built. The moment the gates closed behind her, she ceased to be Hollywood's golden girl. She became Sister Dolores Hart, a postulant beginning a life of prayer, silence, and discipline. When the news broke, the world was stunned. Headlines screamed, "The girl who kissed Elvis becomes a nun." But for Dolores, it wasn't a tragedy. It was the first time in her life she felt completely free. Life inside the Abbey and the love that never faded. The woman who had once walked Hollywood's red carpets now rose before dawn, long before the sun touched the Connecticut hills. At 2 a.m., the first bell called her to prayer. No cameras, no audience, only candlelight and the soft murmur of psalms filling the stone chapel. This was now Mother Dolores Hart's world, a life governed by the rule of Saint Benedict, ora et labora, pray and work. Each day followed the same quiet rhythm, prayer, labor, reflection. She milked cows at sunrise, worked in the garden by mid-morning, and sewed habits or tended to the abbey's administrative needs in the afternoon. The woman once adorned in satin and diamonds now wore a simple black veil and sandals. Yet she often said that for the first time in her life she felt free. "I didn't give up my life," she explained years later. "I found it." That peace did not come instantly. It was something she learned to cultivate. One prayer, one act of surrender at a time. The silence that had once frightened her became her greatest companion. It was in that silence that she began to understand love. Not the love of fame or romance, but love rooted in faith, sacrifice, and service. Still, even the purest heart does not forget what it once cherished. Deep within her prayers lived the memory of Don Robinson, the man who had once promised her a home, a life, and a future. Don never married. Every Christmas and Easter, he made the long journey to the Abbey of Regina Laudis to see her, not as a suitor, but as a faithful friend. He would sit quietly across the courtyard, and she would greet him with the same serenity she carried into her vows. Their meetings were brief and chaste, yet profoundly human, two souls tied by affection that had been transformed rather than broken. Over nearly 5 decades, this ritual became a quiet testament to enduring love. Love stripped of desire, sustained only by memory, respect, and grace. Within the Abbey walls, Mother Dolores found a new purpose. She eventually took her final vows and was appointed prioress, guiding younger nuns and overseeing the Abbey's education programs. Her fame had long since faded, but her wisdom and strength made her a leader. She taught that every wound, every heartbreak, every loss could be turned into a gift when given to God. Many who came to the Abbey for counsel left speaking of her compassion, her humor, and her quiet authority. She was no longer the actress who kissed Elvis. She was a woman who helped others find peace in a world of noise. In 2011, when Don Robinson grew gravely ill, the abbess granted Dolores permission to visit him. After decades of separation, she sat once more beside the man who had loved her enough to let her go. She held his hand as he took his final breath, a moment that closed a love story written not in romance, but in devotion. "I lost him twice," she said softly afterward, "but both times I was blessed to have loved him at all." That loss could have reopened the emptiness she had left behind, but instead, it deepened her faith. For Dolores, love, in all its forms, was never meant to be possessed. It was meant to be offered. And in giving it away, she found something Hollywood could never provide: lasting peace, a purpose unmeasured by applause, and a love that truly never faded. Faith, legacy, and her quiet return to the world. By the time the world saw her again, Mother Dolores Hart had been gone from Hollywood for nearly 5 decades. In 2012, she made a surprising return, not in a glamorous gown, but in her nun's habit, walking the red carpet at the Academy Awards. The documentary God is the Bigger Elvis, produced by HBO, told her story to a new generation. Cameras flashed, journalists gasped, and the crowd fell silent as the former movie star, now a Benedictine nun, smiled gently and said she was there not for fame, but to raise funds for her abbey. That moment captured everything her life had come to represent. Not fame abandoned, but transformed. In the years that followed, Mother Dolores continued her mission at the Abbey of Regina Laudis. As Dean of Education, she led programs that combined art, faith, and healing, helping others discover meaning through creativity. She wrote her memoir, The Ear of the Heart, offering a rare look at her journey from Hollywood to Holy Vows. Readers from around the world sent her letters of gratitude, sharing their struggles, doubts, and rediscovered faith. In response, she posted reflections online, readings of scripture, meditations on suffering, and messages about finding love through wounds. Even in her 80s, her words remained full of strength. She often spoke about her African gray parrots, Tobiel and later Bo, using their stories to teach about renewal and God's timing. Her essays, like Granny Get Your Gun, reflected on courage, protection, and the inner strength of women. And in her 2014 Lenten Reflections, she reminded followers that resurrection means the body and soul are both sacred. Every life, even an unborn one, holds divine purpose. Today, at over 86 years old, Mother Dolores still lives at the Abbey in Connecticut. She no longer serves as prioress, but remains an active part of her community, praying, writing, and guiding others toward peace. She never sought fame again, yet somehow became more famous for leaving it behind. More than 60 years after she walked away from Hollywood, Dolores Hart remains one of the industry's most haunting mysteries. Not because she disappeared, but because she chose peace over power. In a world obsessed with fame, she did the unthinkable. She turned her back on it and found something greater. Her story reminds us that success means nothing without purpose, and that sometimes the most courageous act is walking away. What do you think? Could you give up everything for the sake of inner peace? Share your thoughts below, and if stories like this move you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more untold Hollywood stories.